to undertake such a project. It is therefore in the above points where CIPRA's core competencies exist and where our expertise helps people address those factors for a better return on investment. So considering everything that has been mentioned up to now, I would like to bring Andrew again so he can do a quick compare and contrast of all the elements and see how these can lead to a more informed decision for anyone interested in email marketing. Andrew?
Perfect. Thank you, Oscar. So we covered a lot of material here, and as I mentioned, each one of those sections could be a webinar in itself, and there's a lot of information that we could provide on it. So just to kind of summarize, this is, I think it could be a useful chart for you to making informed decisions and finding a solution. What you want to look at is in terms of the columns. So we have different columns there. One is managed services. This is something that we offer here. You also have the option, of course, of using Microsoft Outlook or a basic tool for your marketing campaign. You also have other options, so self-serve options. So this is an option where you may log in. You may have an interface where you can send out email campaigns. So if we compare these different options here, they each have their pros and cons. One of them in terms of the creation of the HTML, the testing, all the details that we covered before in terms of coding, making sure they're rendered right. Well, in terms of Microsoft Outlook, it's pretty much do-it-yourself. You're going to have to figure out in terms of the coding what could be filtered, what works, what could influence the rendering, making sure you have the right test parameters in place. The self-service option, well, it really varies. Usually they'll provide a general template. You can customize it. However, usually the testing is up to you. You'll have to figure out in terms of trying different things, how it's rendering, and how to optimize it. There's also, if we scan through the list, compliance with privacy and email laws. So one of the values in terms of working with a partner that's focused in this area is knowing the different laws. If you're a company where your brand reputation is very important, you really want to stay away from legal issues, well, you want to really make sure that you get the right advice. And of course, if you're using Microsoft Outlook, or even if you're using a self-serve option, you don't always have access to someone that can guide you or look over it or at least review it. And it kind of reflects in terms of the business model, the self-serve options. Their target market is really high volume of customers. So they have a platform in place. They can't offer too many customizations. They have to make it standard, otherwise they won't scale. By contrast to something like managed services where you have someone working with you that will guide you, there's a lot of extra value that can be offered. So we talked about reporting analytics. So it's one thing to get your reports in terms of a self-serve option, but really the next important step is to be able to analyze it, use that feedback information to optimize your next campaign. We also, Oscar talked about deliverability, so how it's related in many ways to, say, your credit score. Here, this is something you want to keep in mind too. If you're starting email marketing in-house using your corporate server, chances are you're not going to probably get the best results. And it's going to be very difficult to figure out, is it because of your creative, is it because of your sender reputation? So that's where you may want to go, at least for the first campaign, start with someone that does have a high deliverability infrastructure. In terms of the self-serve model, well, the deliverability really varies. In many cases, you're going to be sharing your reputation with other customers using the same IP address. What could happen in some cases that if the reputation is damaged, for instance, someone brings in a list that causes a lot of complaints, well, as a side effect, your campaign can also be affected. Probably the most valuable, though, what I really want to emphasize is really the human expertise that we provide in terms of managed services. It's guiding you from basically A to Z, not only in terms of the email marketing creative and so on, but understanding your business objectives. So making sure that the program that we put in place is really customized in terms of your needs and what's going to make your company successful. So we talked about a lot of different areas. I just want to open up a next slide here with our contact information, and we're just going to scan to see in terms of the questions. Okay, there's a few questions here. I'm just going to go through them. Yeah, some people are asking in terms of the webinar. We're going to make the webinar available afterwards. It will be on our website in the next couple of days, so you'll be able to download it and listen to the recording there. Some people are also asking in terms of questions related to if you can contact us privately. Yeah, as I mentioned at the beginning, feel free. We have our contact information on the screen now. You can contact us. We're more than happy to answer any of your questions or provide more detail. As I mentioned, there's a lot of different areas that we can talk about, and your feedback will also be useful because we can then use that feedback to maybe customize a next webinar or present on a specific subject. Okay, so I'm going to go through there. Okay, we have a question here. How are we able to measure sender reputation? That's a really good question, and it's not in terms of sender reputation that you're going to get like a credit score. I know the analogy fits in very well. Your sender reputation, though, is say, for instance, with an ISP like AOL or Yahoo, they're not necessarily going to give you a score back, but they have different levels that you can either recognize. One way of knowing your sender reputation is if you apply for what's called whitelisting. If your whitelisting is accepted, your application is accepted, well, you know your sender reputation is quite good. And what they're saying is they trust you as a sender to give you preferential treatment. There's other ways, too, or other methods that we can use to kind of measure it or to gauge it through delivery tests and other ways. Sometimes, too, in terms of indirectly, we can measure it using by basically looking at your infrastructure, kind of like what I covered at the beginning. We do a consulting, we go through the different steps, and a lot of times we can see certain variables that we know will affect your sender reputation and then could be having a negative effect. Okay, there's a question here like on startup businesses, small companies less than 5 staff. How would you suggest they start on a shoestring budget? That's a really good question, and there's a lot of variables you have to take in consideration because obviously if you're a smaller company, it's not going to be that valuable, or the return is going to be not that great if you invested in a lot of complicated software and stuff. And I'd say for a small company, I wouldn't recommend that either. What I would really want to focus on is if you're planning and for your business to do email marketing, to really start off in the right way. The chances are, you can find some options available on the internet, self-serve, but you're really not going to be able to optimize it. And in that case, this is where I think something such as our managed services could help, because we would work with you in terms of A to Z, so your creative creation, testing it and optimizing it, and then at least you have a foundation or a base that you can use to expand your email marketing program. One of the great things about email marketing, just to kind of touch on this subject, is that it's really something that levels the playing field. So you don't need to be a big company, spend lots of money in terms of advertising